Main Coast Gator, and I was trying to think of who's
Tri-Sailor.
Tri-Sailor is a common one.
Elvis is dead.
Definitely not a Dem.
Right.
Yeah.
GOP patriot.
Kennebunk Report Independent. Hi, this is Greg Kesich. I'm the editorial page editor at the Portland Press Herald, and I'm here today with Sarah Collins, the assistant editorial page editor. And we're doing one of the things that we enjoy doing from time to time, which is delving into the reader comments from our website. And I wonder if you saw anything, Sarah, that grabbed your attention.
A recent MaineVoices by the mother of a teenage girl who died by suicide last year.
Oh, it's a beautiful piece. Yeah.
Led to a lot of thoughtful comments. People related to it seemed to draw readers who had experience with mental health issues in their own family. Donna Wright said to Victoria Vest, my heart goes out to you. My daughter has a mental health illness. Something has to be done with the care these afflicted receive. Very few doctors or dentists take their insurance, and they get minimal care. Whatever happened to the oath the doctors took? What is wrong with our government officials who aren't fighting for these individuals? And for the most part, adults who suffer from this disease live in substandard housing and get such a small amount of money to live on that they must go to food pantries to sustain their food intake. They're treated worse than we treat our family pets. I hope people read this and become more aware of how they treat others, because you never know when this sad, debilitating disease will hit your own family.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, it just shows, hits so many different bases that we talk about a lot, about the holes in the community mental health care system and the ways that it's not given parity with other kinds of health care. Not that everybody's getting great health care. Poor people are getting great health care, period, but there's real disadvantages built in.
And we've talked among ourselves about how issues don't seem to be prioritized until they happen to a politician.
Right.
Got a lot of response from the commentariat commenting on whether or not women are marginalized in conversations. I have to say right up front that
I don't agree.
I'm a perpetrator. I'm not sure. I think that, I'm an equal opportunity interrupter, but I don't think that certainly doesn't go for every workplace.
I'm a big interrupter, so that piece got a lot of attention in my house. It was a column about how men interrupt women, and it used the recent controversy at the Uber board as an example.
One woman jumped in and immediately said, "I'm surprised that men who've led rather sophisticated work and personal lives, who are well-educated and ostensibly know their manners, still interrupt women to the degree that they do. On top of this, these are men who think of themselves as very inclusive and supportive of women." Followed immediately by The Whole Truth, who said, "Obviously, the researchers have never observed a conversation with my wife and I, nor a conversation with my wife and her coworkers/subordinates. One of the many reasons I married her was because I admire her strength and take-charge attitude regardless of who she's dealing with. If women want to be treated equal, they need to demand it just as most men would." Problem solved.
It's just right. It's women are not as good at standing up for themselves. I guess that's the issue.
If you don't like being interrupted, it's pretty simple, he says. Do something about it instead of wasting time complaining about it. And Dan Leary thinks it's a partisan problem. "I don't remember reading about this after the hearing for Betsy DeVos when Democrat men interrupted her nonstop. P.S. Stop whining."
He's thinking about Kamala Harris, who was interrupted a number of times during her Senator of California, interrupted during her interrogation of Jeff Sessions, and also I think the national security leaders.
Mm-hmm.
But he's just decided to dive in on that one. We see that a lot in the comments. Once a string gets going a little ways, it doesn't really matter what the original story was. Okay, so when I first read that story, I was a little embarrassed because it's something I get in trouble for a lot at home, is interrupting. And I say to my wife, it's not because you're a woman, it's because you're the only other person here, and I wanted to talk. I was tired of not talking. Sometimes it gets pointed out to me that I have a tendency to interrupt, to get a little too eager in conversations.
You need to have a control sample, invite a guy over.
Right. Go interrupt him.
Right.
Which could happen. which could happen. So I have a couple too. I got a lot of comments from a column I wrote a couple of weeks ago about Holly Seeliger, who is a local school board member who also has a YouTube channel and delivers some her insights on news that I think most of the people who have kids in the school district don't know about. You know, it's the way our media landscape is so fractured. You could have one audience that only knows about you in one way and another that knows in another way. And I became aware of her kind of idiosyncratic views, and it made me look at her YouTube channel, and I was shocked because I saw things that from, you know, where I sit in the mainstream media land, I thought nobody even believed them. And I'm thinking of the Seth Rich murder conspiracy that he is allegedly was killed by the Democratic National Committee for revenge for allegedly releasing the emails and records that became part of the WikiLeaks dump. This is what I thought was a right-wing conspiracy, but it also has left-wing adherents who believe that the DNC killed Seth Rich because they wanted to help Hillary Clinton. And so for the record, this is just a theory. There is no evidence to suggest anything of the like. It's just fits with a certain worldview that thinks that this is something the DNC would do. And so therefore, since they might do it, they probably did it, and they put the onus on the rest of the world to prove that they didn't. Another was the Pizzagate controversy.
Right. I mean, I was surprised that would have any traction.
Again, prominent Democrats were doing a terrible thing. They were running a child sex ring. And the only evidence for this is in some of the emails that were leaked. They used terms like pizza.
Mm-hmm. A code word.
I just thought, I didn't really get that deep into it, but I said, isn't it amazing that this member of the school board thinks all these crazy things? And she got a lot of defenders, shockingly high number, including people who said terrible things about me, called me a loser in life.
Metaphorically shooting the messenger.
Yeah. And then this was a fairly thoughtful response in support from John Carpenter, who's, I think, a local person. And he says, does every victim killed in a, quote, botched robbery have their laptop confiscated? Is that typical? Are the local security camera recordings also impounded and FOIA requests refused following perhaps the release of another small portion of the grainiest they could find that reveals nothing? He's talking about this is an unsolved murder, and people who are investigating it are having, citizen investigators are having trouble getting information. Well, Mr. Carpenter, that is totally typical in an open murder investigation. A Freedom of Information Act doesn't apply to the police while they're in the middle of an investigation.
As the Press Herald has found.
As everybody
right, anyone
found,
who's ever
for many good
reported.
reasons. And you really don't want the police sharing raw intelligence with the public to smear people, stuff that they can't prove. But then he goes on to, I think, a more interesting argument. He goes, indeed, the Russia did it narrative, going back on for a year now, that has yet to introduce its first checkable fact. All we get are assertions of high confidence from not 17, but actually only 4 intel agencies who are paid to lie to foreign countries. And since 2003, the repeal of the Smith-Mundt Act can now legally do so in the United States. So he turns it around on me and you and the rest of right-thinking America, that we all believe that there is this Russian hacking of our election. But how do we really know that? We don't really have, if there is evidence out there, I wouldn't be able to understand it. It's it's highly technical. And so it all comes down to a question of trust.
Right. There's no litmus test. There's no check so many boxes on this form and that's it. It's a Russian conspiracy.
So it's kind of disturbing, isn't it, really? Because it's, I trust the New York Times. I trust the Washington Post. I suppose I trust the FBI. But, the FBI's lied. New York Times, told us
Judith Miller.
there were weapons of mass destruction. They sometimes get things wrong.
Right. There's this fire hose of information that we're, all constantly ducking under.
But these guys believe whatever evidence, whatever little blogger comes along, any Alex Jones or I can't even remember the names of them. I don't want to say them because they'll get all upset. But it's a question. I guess you have to come down to a point where you have to decide. You have a theory about how the world works, and there's certain sources you're going to trust because they interview multiple people. And they give you different points of view, and they give you the information you need to evaluate. But
yeah, they'd say that we unthinkingly accept the word of the Times and the Washington Post and 538 and
right. So there it is.
There it
Trust
is.
nobody. Yeah, I got one more.
All right.
There was a story today's paper about parking downtown for Peaks Island people. Anytime the parking is in the news, people get all worked up about it. And we got this comment from Denise Talbot, who said, "This is a problem for all in the in-town area. It's way out of control. The people that run the city keep encouraging people to live here and businesses to open. As a result, finding parking has become outrageous. To say anything is like talking to the wall. The city planners seem to be in denial. I live in town and have since the early 70s, and it's now a total mess. I watch cars driving around and around and around all the time with no place to park."
Oh, my idea of heaven is not having to have a car at all.
Exactly. Me too. And the people that run the city keep encouraging people to live here and businesses to open. Yes, in fact, they do.
It's called a tax base.
It's in general. That's sort of what cities are, is places where people live and businesses open. People expect there to be a parking spot at home, a parking spot at work, and a third parking spot waiting for them wherever they're going to go in between. And if they don't get all three of those parking spaces available all the time, they go nuts.
It's a conspiracy.
It is. That's the true conspiracy. So this is a little shorter podcast than we usually do, but if you really want to do a lot more listening, Joe Lawler, our Health and Human Services reporter, and I kind of sorted through all the intricacies of MaineCare/Medicaid. Not really all the intricacies. We just hit the high points, but it's a good explainer if you're interested in this area of healthcare policy. What's going on right now and what's coming up later this year, both in Augusta and in Washington.
Have a good one.
You can hear that Medicaid explainer and other past episodes at pressherald.com/podcasts. You can also find all episodes in the iTunes and Android stores, as well as on Stitcher. You can email your questions and comments to letterstotheeditor@pressherald.com. Thank you for listening.